Well, blocking continues to keep major storms away from much of the eastern part of the United States. One southeast of Nova Scotia waiting to exit, another one crossing Florida and going out the other side, also waiting to exit. And Southern California continues to get pounded by heavy rains, while the Northeast, Mid Atlantic states, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Middle and Upper Mississippi Valley bask in sunshine today, and we will bask in the glory of the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which tonight is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. You can get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. So if you decide to make a purchase, be it this or anything else on the Tempest website, do by all means use the coupon code winter2324, because if you do,
You'll get 10% off. Great.
Yes, great.
Yes.
A good evening to everybody on the chat board. And just as a reminder, Wednesday is going to be a special Joe and Joe weather show, as weather royalty will be joining us. He goes by the name of Lee Goldberg. You may have seen him if you watch WABC TV in New York. And does he occasionally do network stuff on Good Morning America? I mean,
I'm not sure. I'm never up that early anymore.
No, neither am I. Well, anyhow, he's going to be here, which matters so much more than whether he does network stuff on some television thing. So that's at 7:35 p.m. Eastern time. So mark it down, folks. Okay, mark it down. And we are also glad that everybody is here. Welcome to those of you who are not necessarily on the chat board, but hanging out in the background, just lurking about, waiting to hear what we have to say. We're glad you're here too. And if you like the show, hit the like button. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and the occasional Friday and Saturday when storms are running around, which they're not going to be doing this week.
Oh, most definitely not.
No, we're in the clear.
It's El Bordo. Or as Alan Casper used to say, when it's boring for me, it's great for all of you.
Well, that's true. No, it is. I mean, it's very quiet. I mean, considering how what we dealt with during December and what the things we had to deal with during the month of January in terms of the major storms and big rain and wind events and the couple of snow events that we had. We were due for and of course then 10 days of gloom and doom. We were definitely due for for a quiet period, and this one is in its third day, and I think you could certainly make a case that this is going to go on, let's say through the weekend. Maybe it may not be picture perfect all the way through, but for now it is.
Well, I think if we do see any precipitation, and I know that some might have been talking about showers on Friday, but I personally, Joe, don't think we're going to see any precipitation till at the very earliest late Saturday or Saturday night. And then that'll be gone. And then Super Bowl Sunday comes, and the weekend looks amazingly mild. I'm thinking here in the lower Hudson Valley, mid 50s on Saturday, low to mid 50s on Sunday. I mean, this is a great week coming up, a very quiet week, not much to talk about. And we'll see how things pan out for a possible pattern change, but not until probably after Valentine's Day. At least that's how it looks right now.
I am continuing to be very guarded about this particular pattern change. I'm not doubting that the actual pattern itself is going to be different. I'm questioning whether, because the bottom line, Joe, is what is it going to do for snow weenies and winter weather lovers? And I'm just going to say, I'm going to just put this out there. I really hope that you do not have your expectations very high. I guess maybe that's the best way to word it.
That's probably is the best way because
I'm seeing. Go ahead.
you can get all the cold weather you want, but if the cold weather forces a lot of these potential snowmakers well to our south, or if, as we were talking about last night, if the upper trough ends up more to the west, like close at 85 or 90 degrees longitude, a lot of these storms may pass off to our west and bring up more rain than snow.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I'm thinking. You know how I have my ideas about how weather works in the winter months, and a lot of times you try to find a thread of similarity as you go along. Just figure out, okay, well, this seems to be repeating and repeating. And I was looking at a few things today, thinking that uh, looking at how where the teleconnections are and where they're going, and thinking back on how they were at the beginning of January. Um, it would not surprise me. Now remember, we had that week where we had two major storms that went to the Great Lakes, and it would not surprise me if we go into something similar to that, where we wind up starting off uh, the first part of that pattern change by shooting lows up to the Great Lakes again. Wouldn't shock me.
It wouldn't shock me either. But again, I agree with you. Nobody, don't get your. And I've gone on social media, Joe, and looked at other sites, and they're all, well, most of the ones I looked at are all jumping up and down and saying, "You just wait until after the middle part of February. Oh, you just wait. We're going to be set up for, big things. Lots of snow and all this sort of stuff." And I just say, okay, well, maybe, but the pessimist in me is that. It may not necessarily come to pass. We'll see how it happens.
They are they're not. I, I don't know. I think that this is going to be a huge shock to some people when they realize that they're not going to get the pattern change that they thought they were going to get.
Well, we'll see. I saw that in one case, somebody had posted something where there was going to be like a Greenland block and a huge high pressure ridge over Alaska and another block over the Balkan Sea, which would mean cold weather for Europe and cold weather for North America and
Well,
all this. You know,
you know where that was from? I'll tell you
where
where that was from. That was from the zero Z 10 millibar, and I'll show it on the screen. In fact, when we get going, but that was from that run, and there's been the occasional run which has been splitting the polar vortex in two, sending one center over in Europe and dropping the other center in eastern Canada, and moving it southward. Okay, and the thing is that uh, the subsequent runs have no split at all, and in fact, they have like a little hanging trough in eastern Canada, and the polar vortex winds up going back over to Siberia and wrapping up again like a tight little ball. And I remember when we were going through January, we had the same volatility in the models where we had models showing the splits in the polar vortex that never wound up happening. We got an elongation, and I think that's probably the more likely outcome here, that we get an elongation. A lot of these forecasts, honest to God, a lot of these forecasts that I've seen border on wish casting. They just do. I think they're grasping on every straw. I'm, you know, I'm not saying at this stage of the game that they're going to be wrong, but a lot of the evidence that I'm looking at is just kind of saying, you know what, this is not what it appears to be. I just can't seem to muster up enough excitement. And every once in a while there'll be a run that'll get me going, and I'll look at it and I was like, oh my God, well this is very interesting. This looks really promising. And then within the next run of the model, or next two runs of the models, it goes back to something that's far less bullish, or for that matter, not even bullish at all when it comes to a change in pattern. But you know what? I still have an open mind, but I have expressed my opinion about this. So it's no secret. I'm just not. I'm not enthused by what I'm looking at over the next couple of weeks.
We shall see. Maybe this will be we often talk about front loaded winters. Maybe this will be a late winter. Maybe this will be a winter where everything will come our way, in March
In
and even into
April,
early April. Yeah.
oh, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you have what'll be the ultimate insult is that you'll be right. That's what will happen. We'll get to late March or early April, but it'll only snow in the daytime. It won't snow at night.
Right.
So it snows in the daytime, then it doesn't stick to unless it's
Maybe it'll
coming.
be like a repeat of it'll be a repeat of 1982 where we had a blizzard on April the 6th. And don't forget, folks, we do have that big eclipse of the sun on April the 8th that everybody is looking forward to, and it would be a tragedy, I think, if we had a major winter storm that late in the season. By the way, Joe,
Yes.
the American Astronomical Society made an offer of 15,000 pairs of solar eclipse glasses for free. And they said all you have to do is contact them, and they'll send as many of those out as you want. And they had to shut the website down because they said we've received far in excess of 15,000 requests for glasses. So that just goes to show you that we're still many weeks away from the eclipse, but a lot of people are already groping and looking for devices to watch the eclipse on. And all of those glasses that were being offered by the AAS, gone. Forget it. Goodbye. So, what can I say? And again, it would be really something hard to swallow if we ended up with a major winter storm during that first week of April, that critical first week for everybody who wants to see the eclipse.
By the way, um, today is National Weather Person's Day,
That's right.
and if you look on the screen, you can see the one of the first weather observers. Correct, Joe? John
John
Jeffries.
John Jeffries. That's right.
Well, not only was he a terrific, one of the first weather observers, but that the hat he's wearing is fabulous. I mean, it is just, I mean, it's absolutely fabulous outfit
I
that he's got on.
What is that? Is that a leopard skin hat
That's
or?
that's what it kind of looks like. I,
you
I, I'm sure the, I'm
on my
sure.
face on my Facebook memories, I posted that picture not last year, but actually quite a few years ago. And you came back on Facebook and posted a picture of Harpo Marx and said this is more like what he really looked like.
Did I do that?
Yeah, you did.
I did. Oh
I think that
wow.
was like 2012 or 2014 because I have posted this picture virtually every year for the last decade on National Weather Person's Day. So
This is the first time I remember seeing this.
no, you've seen this before.
I have. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, as I told you off screen, my memory is it's not working very well these days.
It's not what it used to be.
No, it's not. All right. So on that note, why don't we switch over to the watches and warnings map and take a look at where there is some weather going on that continues to go on, and that is in California and the Southwest. We've got a slew of flood watches and winter storm warnings and avalanche warnings and winter weather advisories across from Arizona back to Nevada, up through much of California. We have winter storm warnings and winter weather. No, I'm sorry, winter storm warnings and winter storm watches up for the Wasatch up and down the state of Utah, and also some winter storm warnings in western Colorado and a couple of counties in Idaho and in southern Montana and in northwestern Wyoming, where we've got a few winter storm warnings there too. So it certainly has been quite the storm system. And if we take a look at the satellite loop, you can see on the left the actually before we even do that, let me just show you the surface map out in the west because remember yesterday we had this coiled, well-developed major storm sitting to the west of San Francisco and making its way to the coastline. Well, that storm, that actual low has weakened considerably, but you've got this, the leftover energy from that and this long stationary boundary that cuts down through Nevada, crosses California, and then goes out off of the coast of Southern California. It looks like there's a low sitting practically right on Los Angeles right now. And then when you switch back and we'll look at the satellite, you can see there's just this arm of subtropical moisture from the Pacific just streaming in to California and going northeastward with those clouds now reaching up into Wyoming. And check out the radar here, Joe. I mean, just loaded. In fact, there's a big, huge flash flood warning there on the west side of Los Angeles that continues. And you've got these bands of heavy rain that just keep sweeping in from off the Pacific, moving northeastward. And that area is just not. It's been like that all day.
Well, I said to Renata, I mean, here where, and especially at my house, I think I made the comment a couple of times. It almost seemed during the summertime that my house was the epicenter for all kinds of heavy rain events. In fact, in July, I had one event where 9 inches of rain fell in a single day. So all I said to Renata this over dinner when we were watching the news and seeing all of this happening in California, I said, "Well, we went through all of this. I think it's time now to share the loves." It's not that I'm heartless. It's not that I'm not sad for the people who live in California. But if it has to shift to another part of the country, let it shift. Because we like I said in the summer and early fall in this part of the country, in our neck of the woods, we certainly had our fair share of flooding concerns and flooding problems. So now somebody else is getting it. And I mentioned 2 or 3 years ago, California on the drought maps, they were not just red, they were deep red. They were in not just severe drought, they were in exceptional drought. And if you remember 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, the news stories were people almost literally praying, hoping, wishing that they'd get any kind of moisture to help alleviate the drought. Well, sometimes your prayers get answered, and they're certainly getting answered this year in California. Well, they had enough. They had more than fair share last year, and it looks like it's happening again for them this year. Be careful what you hope or pray for, because sometimes nature not only gives it to you, but gives it to you in excess.
Yesterday, a record maximum rainfall record was set across southwestern California, a record rainfall of 4.10 inches in downtown Los Angeles. This was just yesterday, which broke the old record of 2.55 inches set in 1927. And this was also the third wettest February day and tied for the 10th wettest of any day since records began in 1877. The wettest day ever recorded in downtown Los Angeles was 5.88 inches back on March the 2nd, 1938. A record rainfall of 1.76 inches was set at Los Angeles International Airport, which broke the old record of, and this was a talk about low bearing fruit, but I guess everything is relative because rain out there sometimes is rather sparse. The old record is 0.56 inches set in 1958. Record rainfall of 1.5 inches at Long Beach Airport in California, breaking the old record of 0.69. Record rainfall of 2.39 inches was set at Santa Barbara Airport, and that broke the old record of a half an inch that was set in 1990. I was trying to see, I'm on the website here, the LA website, trying to from the Weather Service, just trying to see if they have a public information statement of some kind. And I think I just found one. No, just they're just hoping that I get a slew of rainfall amounts, but apparently they haven't put out anything like that. So that didn't really help the cause. Do we have a super chat hit? I see a super chat hit.
I'm going to check. I have not been looking at the chat board. I've been doing something else on the side.
Oh,
Scrolling.
Paul Roman. Paul Roman actually hit he actually hit the tip jar before the show started, so he may not. Oh, I don't know if he's still on the chat board, but if you are Paul, and I think you are, thank you very much for hitting the tip jar on this National Weather Person's Day.
Yes, thank you, Paul.
All right, let's back up to the radar. We've got also some precip up in the Pacific Northwest. You can see patches of light to moderate rain in western Washington, western Oregon, into northwestern California. We're starting to see moisture moving into Utah and into parts of Idaho and Montana and Wyoming. The east is quiet. We still have some showers and a couple of thunderstorms scattered around in parts of central and southeast Florida, and also a little band of showers off the coast of South Carolina that kind of makes its way back in to the Georgia coast, north of Savannah, just north of Savannah, but most of that is on the light side. WPC. No severe weather is being forecast by the Storm Prediction Center over the next 3 days. WPC, in terms of 7-day liquid precip, this takes us to Monday night, anywhere from a tenth to a quarter from central New England to Virginia. Then you start to get into some bigger numbers across the Gulf states, anywhere from an inch and a half to as much as 2.5 to 3 inches from Louisiana northeastward across Mississippi and Alabama into northern Georgia, and that includes me. And we also see the 7-day precip amounts in the west, still calling for several inches or more in Southern California on top of what's already fallen. This started at 7 o'clock tonight, so Eastern time, 4 o'clock West Coast time. So an additional several inches on top of the rain that they already had is coming for Southern California, for LA, and down to San Diego. Also, a stripe of heavy precip across central Arizona, so that'll probably be snow for places like Flagstaff and some of the mountains as you go north. In Nevada, 3/4 of an inch to areas of an inch and a half. Same for Utah, western Colorado, on up into Idaho, and up into the Pacific Northwest. This is what the snow looks like. This is the WPC's probability for at least 2, which covers pretty much everybody west of the Rock, from the Rockies westward. And we'll put in the probability of at least 8. And actually, uh, quite a few areas from the Sierra Nevadas to the central and southern Nevada itself, but north of Las Vegas, but not too far north of Las Vegas, I want you to know. A lot of areas showing here 50 to 80% probability for at least 8. Also, for a good chunk of Utah, that stripe across Arizona, western Colorado, western Wyoming, back up into Idaho. So, fairly high probability of some sizable snowfalls, and still also a fairly high probability in the Sierra Nevadas of at least 12. Should we look at the east? We could. We're not going to see
Good.
anything.
You're not going to see anything. I was just going to say.
I mean, I'll set the bar down to 2 inches here, and there's nothing. I mean, there's absolutely nothing over the next 72 hours. And I won't even bother to bring up the long range because of the snowfall forecast, because it's still all in the west. So I was talking before about the polar vortex. So I'll just go back to the 0Z run. And here's why, people were jumping up and down today. They were looking at this, for the people that follow the PV, you see how it's wrapped up like a tight little ball at the moment, and starts to stretch and elongate. I'm going to bring this down so you can look to see the date and time. And I'm also going to make this a little bit smaller so we could see it all on the whole screen. And you'll notice that one center now, it splits, Joe, at 200 day 11. So at day 11, the GFS last night split the vortex in two. One center in Siberia, the other center is dropping, moving down across the Davis Strait and into northeastern Canada, and continues to track southward from there, almost to Lake Winnipeg. I mean, it's got these two, you know, fairly the Siberia vortex is a little bit stronger, but not that much stronger than what gets left back in North America. And this weakened state of the polar vortex, I mean, if this were to verify, would be quite bullish. And of course, we'll go to the 12Z run just to use the main run for the same time frame. No split at all. Not only no split, you get an elongation that results in the Siberian part of the vortex being so dominant that it you can barely find whatever it is that splits and moves into northeastern Canada there, and then the part that's over Siberia starts to strengthen into a tight little ball again. And for those of you who watch the show on a regular basis, know that you do not want the polar vortex in the stratosphere to be wrapped up like a tight little ball, because that means all the cold air is wrapped up over the Arctic and doesn't have any kind of escape hatch to move down through Canada and into the United States. And eh, this the models are doing what they did in early January, going really bullish on these ideas of occasional runs where it splits the vortex, and it wound up not only not happening, but it wound up eventually evolving into where the polar vortex, after it elongated, wound up uh, consolidating and strengthening up in over the pole and over Siberia into a tight little ball. And I'm just wondering whether this is going to be the same thing all over again.
Well, that's everybody's, and Dr. Cohen too has been watching. That's his thing, the polar vortex, and he seems actually rather optimistic, Joe, for the not only for the pattern change but also for setting things up for some snowy conditions down the road. So, but I like your thinking, and my thinking is somewhat the same. We've been in this business too long to know that there tends to be disappointment. Don't be over optimistic, especially with the long range models, because that model guidance may be absolutely wrong when we actually get to the time frame that you're anxiously waiting for.
Yep. So the omega block breaks down on the models, and you wind up. Now, this was the earlier run today of the GFS, which I don't know. It just kind of looked a little bizarre to me. It just seems to want to keep the northern jet and the southern jet sort of separate, which is not. I mean, it's plausible. I'm not saying it's impossible, and it just sort of overwhelmed cold, dry air into the eastern part of the United States for much of the time after, say, the 13th or the 14th. It had no storms at all to contend with. However, we will, and of course, at the end of the period, the trough is right down from Alaska down along the west coast again, and you've got a trough that's pulling out in the east, and a ridge starting to build to our west. So we have that. The European went sort of a different road today with this, and kind of lined up also with the Japanese model to an extent, and that is everybody's been talking. People are talking about. I've gotten. I got phone calls about the 13th and 14th Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
I don't, that's the day they were all circling upon. Well, guess what? If the European is right on this run, where you have a northern stream system that's coming from the Bering Sea over the top of Alaska and drops down, while southern energy swings eastward and winds up phasing into a trough where right up and down the Mississippi River. Guess what? Get ready for a major storm to develop and go to Chicago if this is correct. So there's this, and once that went out, then it looked like it got it has a kind of a cold look to it after that storm goes by, but it wants to take a storm system for those dates well up to the west. Here's the Japanese model, the JMA, same thing. Bring a trough over the top, phase it with the one coming out of the south, and now you've got this full latitude negatively tilted trough running up and down the Mississippi River Valley with a ridge right along and off the East Coast. Another model that says, okay, take a storm up to the Great Lakes, maybe to the Eastern Lakes, as opposed to Chicago. The JMA was more like Detroit. Then you have the Canadian model, uh, kind of the same thing, Takes a little longer to get there. Well, it doesn't quite get there. It seems to want to keep systems a little bit more separate, but in terms of what it did on the surface, it still wound up taking a storm system up the St. Lawrence Valley. So there's that. And then we can finish this off with the 18Z GFS, which kind of keeps both streams separate. And you see that southern energy moves along, and it lifts it up off the mid-Atlantic coast. But the problem with this is that there's hardly any cold air. There's hardly any cold air with the GFS solution. So I think either way, uh, going through this weekend, Joe, and into early next week, for me, in my mind, even if you were to get something that takes a more favorable track, I just don't see where the cold air is going to come from. Where's the cold air here? It's up north of the lakes. It's up in the northernmost Great Lakes and back up into Canada. So I'm not. This did not excite me. I don't care how much blue the model shows in Western Virginia and West Virginia. It's also got patches of rain in there anyway. There's just no cold air with this.
I'm just looking at this chat board. We just got a hit from a super chat hit from Choosy Heretics Choose Karn, and I don't know what Karn. It looks like Karn is part of the.
Carnation. No, I think he said. I think it was. I think it's Choosy Heretics Choose Carnation something. I
Well, anyway,
forget.
thank you very much for the hit.
Yes, Choosy Heretics often posts comments after the fact. I think he doesn't always make the live show. But I appreciate the super chat hit. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, here we go. It's Choosy Heretics Choose Carnation Revolution now. Oh,
Okay.
and by the way, I meant to mention this. So, I mean, on the subject of handles, you have, of course, he's not on the chat board tonight, and that's Peepee Face.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, but there's somebody that posts on the live streams after the fact, and he goes by the name Blank Bag. Okay, blank blank being poo poo.
Okay.
Again, I got it. So there's some people seem to be enamored by this sort of thing. I don't know. Keith James the second, thank you. Um, Thank you very much for hitting super chat. And says, what is that guy Dave Tolerous saying? He was very bullish on this winter. 2 times he was on, wrong both times. Please have him on to explain. Okay.
He might be watching.
He
He might
may
be.
be.
Yeah.
Dave likes to lurk, so he pops up on the chat board every once in a while.
If that comment just now hit a nerve, I guarantee you Dave will be on within 5 minutes.
Oh, well, Fled, I'm just telling you, I'm guarded. I stay guarded. I am not enthused by all of this. I'm just not. I'm not enthused. At least certainly through the early part of next week, I'm not. And then after that, you know, I don't know. It just doesn't. I'm just not. I'm just not excited. I'm just not excited about this. By the way, even before we get to that, we can confirm as we move ahead. Here's your storm off Florida that moves out. Weather is dry everywhere east of the Rockies into Wednesday. The high starts to finally move out, and the California storm, which is going to be moving into the Rockies tomorrow, and actually already is moving into the Rockies. That low goes up into Minnesota with some snows up through Montana and North Dakota. Not a lot. That's maybe brings it. Looks like the model wanted to bring maybe a couple of showers through Friday night into Saturday morning, and then maybe another upper trough coming through Saturday night into Sunday morning. But I could see where both of those wind up producing little or nothing.
Yeah. Well, we've been pushing off the next change toward colder and snowier, possibly a colder, snowier pattern. It seems like every week we push it back a little bit further. Maybe we'll push it back to March now.
Yeah, well, and and then we'll see what happens with this energy, with this southern energy. Is it going to stay separate and flat, or is it going to phase with something in the north and take a stronger storm to the Great Lakes? Um, well, if you're going to argue not to use the GFS, and I understand it doesn't always, it's not the best model, but look, I'm going to tell you,
Are you answering flood weather on this,
yes,
or?
okay, and
Yeah.
I get that, but it doesn't change the fact that at the very least, going through this weekend and early next week, there's no cold air. Okay, I don't care what you're seeing in terms of ensembles or what. There's no cold air, and I would bank on the idea of this low going up like something like what the European has, taking it up to the lakes and then taking it up into Canada. Yeah, there's very cold air on the European at 240 hours, but you know what? At 240 hours, 2 days ago, the European had this 979 low, which it has in Gary, Indiana, on Monday. Had a low in the low 980s, sitting southeast of Nantucket, and that's not there now. So I'm not so sure, whether the European has got the right idea with this strong upper low that's going to be sitting north of Lake Winnipeg with an area of very, very cold air. I mean, I'm certainly not going to put my faith in something, a model that has been, just as squirrely as the GFS has. So I mean, that's just my opinion.
Okay, well, that's your opinion. I'm, I don't really know what to say in terms of, the long range, other than the fact that it seems like we're always kicking the can down the road when it comes to this supposed pattern change, not just in terms of cold, but also in terms of a pattern that would favor snow. And I do believe it is going to turn colder by mid-month, but whether or not it will be favorable for any of the snow lovers out there to get what they want is that's another thing completely.
Well, I just brought up the 500 of the European for next Thursday. I mean, that's certainly that is a cold upper air setup.
Now
Okay,
when you say next Thursday, you're talking about the 15th, not the
correct.
7th, or
The
the
15th.
or the 8th. Yes.
No, I just don't know I don't know if that's real. And if I had to bet, if I had to bet, I bet you the zero Z run comes in looking a whole lot different than this. Do we have and shambles support? Probably. Uh, yeah, to an extent. I mean, the ensembles on the European are they do show a change to colder. Uh, but I would also warn that um, as Joe pointed out, that the other issue would be that it over if it does get cold, it just completely overwhelms, and that you don't have any room for anything from the standpoint of a storm coming getting into a favorable position. I mean, that's always the problem, and I get that. But we're struggling to get it to turn cold. So um, let's get it to turn cold first, and then I guess we'll worry about whether there's going to be no events to follow.
So what else do we have to talk about?
Oh, that's pretty much it. I mean, you have Briller Jeopardy tonight.
I have Briller Jeopardy tonight. Yes, indeed. And I'm
Okay.
going to bring it up right now. It was sent. I love Scott. Scott sends me the questions for Briller Jeopardy like 2 minutes after the show ends. Like last night on Sunday night. I mean, literally like 2 3 minutes after the show ended, boom, he was at the ready and already sent me the questions for tonight. So let me just find them here.
Excuse me. Still have a little bit of congestion that's hanging around from my COVID that I had last week.
All right, so on this Briller Jeopardy, the average snowfall in February in February, the average snowfall for the following cities. Are you ready?
Average snowfall for the following cities for February.
Correct. We'll
Okay.
start. We'll start with Baltimore.
Average snowfall for the month of February for Baltimore. I will say 7.
Snake Country, Joe.
7 is snake country, so it's either 6 or it's 8. Jason Fox said 8. Christinapedia said 8.
Well,
Harold DeCara and Northern Grace say 6.
well, those of you who said 6, sorry, it's 8. Bella
It's 8.
Lugosi said 8.
Ah, Bella Lugosi.
Bella Lugosi, another great name on our chat.
Yes, that's one of my favorite. That's probably my favorite one.
How about Boston? And on this day in 1978, well, actually, it wasn't on this day or this night. In Boston, it didn't really begin until the following morning. But the Great Blizzard of 1978, occurred on this. Well, it didn't even occur tonight for New York. It was more like February 6th when we had flurries early in the morning, and they worked their way up to Boston, and then all heck broke loose. But
Right.
how much average on average in February snowfall does Boston get?
For Boston, I'll say um I'll say 14.
Oh, where's the bell? Where is the bell? Right
Well,
on
you
the nose.
also and you have to ring the bell too because we got 100 likes. So you have to
I
ring
didn't
it
even.
again.
It's really annoying with my when I'm on YouTube. It's annoying in that I don't get the like button to change, but I will ring the bell. I constantly have to log out and log back into YouTube for me to see the number change or the number shift. Yeah, now I see 108. So there you go.
There you go. All right. So Boston was 14. And so William Uber also said 14.
How about Buffalo?
How about Buffalo? Hmm. Usually this time of year, usually the lakes are supposed to be frozen. So I wonder if that's like one of those months where they get less than you might think. Um, I'll say I'll say 21.
Well, Christiopedia says 23, and Chuck Cardillo says 23. Adam Lowe is in Snake Country with 17.
All right, so then it is a low. John Melander said 18.
18, and Miss Blue Ocean says 18, and they are correct.
Oh,
18 inches.
okay. I was
Now,
gonna go high teens, and then the last minute I pushed up into the low 20s.
okay, so here comes number 4, Chicago.
Chicago.
And thank you very much, commentary from Blank Bag 449, who declares winter is now over.
I'll say for Chicago. I said four. I'll
And let me just
uh
say, though, somebody on the chat board already hit it right on the nose. So,
13. I'll say 13.
no, you should have been in Patrick Darcy's camp, or Rich Rothmansky, or Maggie P, who all said 10.
10.
10.
And that's Snake Country, or that's the correct answer.
That's the correct answer, 10.
Okay.
But the last one, well, actually, it's not the last because we also have a bonus. Dallas, average snowfall in February.
Oh, 1 inch.
1 inch, he says. And he rings the bell. 1 inch for Dallas.
1 inch for Dallas.
And here's the bonus question. Take this on, Joe. Redfield, New York. Redfield
Oh
is
God.
is in the Tug Hill Plateau.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
February average snowfall.
I mean, they had 200 inches last year, and like the fifth lowest they ever had. So, I mean, I don't know. I'll say 150.
In 1 month?
Is that too high?
Well, let's put it this way: if you were the skier on the trail, not
Well,
only not only would you have fallen off. Now, I agree with you. I
I
agree
mean,
with you.
how do I even, when with the other cities, I can sort of do a logical draw a map in my mind and put the numbers of places that I know and then just
Well,
sort of figure it out that way. But it's
I
lake effect country. I don't know,
I saw this I saw this number that Scott had provided, and I looked at it and I said, "Really? Really? That it's that that value?" And I would have gone much higher too, Joe. In fact,
so
everybody
it's one
on the
fi-
chessboard is
so
going
so 150 is too high.
way too high. Now, this is
All
based
right.
upon what he gave me.
Well, the other argument is, and I guess in terms of how to approach this, to try to make an intelligent guess, is I could have said, okay, well, if we're talking February, usually Lake Ontario should be frozen, so that that's probably going to be a down month for snowfall. So I'll cut my guess in half and say 75.
Still much
Still
too
too
high.
high. 50,
Still much too high.
40,
Got to go down lower, Joe.
30.
Andy Dobbins, by the way, says 75. Maggie P says 38. Fledweather 36. Rich Montmansky usually hits it on the nose a lot of times. 43. All of these are still way too high. Jamie Foxx, you're closest with 25.
Craig Carlberg said 25. Ari Mack said 24.
Getting closer.
So it's only like 20?
You got it. 20.
Well, I mean, you to use the logic with lake effect, you would say if it's a February month, it should not be that high because in most years the lake is either frozen or at least frozen enough that it cuts down on lake effect snows. And especially in February where usually that's the month that the coast is favored for accumulating snow, which for the second year in a row is a total fallacy.
Well, what else can I say? Except thank you to, that's our Thriller Jeopardy for tonight. And thank you again to Paul Roman, Choosy Heretic, Choose Carnations,
Revolution now.
Revolution Now, and Keith James II for hitting the tip jar tonight.
Thank you. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use the coupon code WINTER2324. And if you do, you'll get
10% off.
uh,
And if my counter is correct, 120 likes tonight.
yes.
Not bad.
And also, don't forget Wednesday, 7:35 p.m. I mean, we'll be here tomorrow night, of course, but Wednesday at 7:35, Lee Goldberg, WABC TV, will be joining us, and it should be a fun night. So I hope everybody's thinking some questions and writing them down and having them ready for Wednesday. All right, nighty night, Mr. Rayo.
Nighty night, Joe.
Nighty night, everybody.